First of all, if you could please just tell me your name.
Okay, Jacque Lane.
How do you spell that?
Jacque. It's spelled weird.
And Lane is?
Lane. Okay.
And what school are you in?
Academie Lafayette in Kansas City. It's a French immersion K-8 charter school.
Okay. And you guys opened up the first year as well?
We did, 1999, with about 230 students that were previously in a magnet school that was declining in Kansas City.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about that journey over those 20 years.
So when we first started, we had a group of amazing committed parents and about 14 teachers that came from that previous program. And a lot of volunteer hours, wrote the charter, didn't have a place to live. So we had all this commitment and wanted to open the school, and then we didn't have a place to stay. So Mr. Hellsberg in Kansas City, a major philanthropist, helped us get and lease a school from a temple that was in existence. So they used it for their Saturday school and let us lease it for our original school building. And we were housed there for about 2 years before we were able to buy a school district building. We moved there with our K-8 program. We continued to grow. We didn't know what we were going to do. And in about 2011, we bought another school building. We expanded it in 2015 and just recently bought a third building to house our middle school, which now has about 280 students, and looking forward to a high school within the next few years. So we're now serving over 1,080 students in 3 buildings.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's a lot of work.
Yes.
A lot of commitment.
Do you track your students at all after they leave?
You know, we used to do a much better job. This came up at a board meeting and another meeting the other day. So we do. A lot of our students, last year we graduated 88 students. Unfortunately, and the thing that we're trying to stop is the bleeding from families leaving Kansas City because they don't feel like they have good high school options. There are a few new high school charters. Some of them have waiting lists. So unfortunately, 24 out of 80 some students, families moved out of Kansas City just because of the high school situation. So that's traumatic for us. A lot of them go to some great public schools in Kansas City. Lincoln Prep is one. They go to private schools. But you know, the fact that people feel like they have to leave our city because they don't have good high school options is just really sad.
My next question was going to be, having been involved in the charter school movement for so long, why are they important to the educational mix in Kansas City? And that was part of the answer, but I'm wondering if there's more to it.
Well, you know, so you're talking about why is a charter important in Kansas City?
Yeah, why is the option of being able to go to a charter important to that educational ecosystem within the city?
Well, in our experience, the district has done a great job in some areas, but you know, there are just some schools that are failing. You know, charter school fails, their sponsor closes them, and you know, public schools fail, they continue to stay open. You know, I think one of the benefits of charters in Kansas City has been more competition. I think we've upped the game for the district. I think we've upped the game with other charters. We all seem to find a niche. Some people, ours is French immersion. Some schools do science, STEM. You know, so it's an option for parents. You know, this morning on the panel they asked about why the school started. I remember sitting on our porches in a midtown area of Kansas City in 1998, really worrying about what was happening with the school district. We changed superintendents frequently. And you know, when you change major leadership like that, there are just changes that happen. We were worried about where we're going to send our kids. We didn't want to move. We had hundreds of parents that didn't want to move, and so that's how we got involved with the charter movement. Started the charter school and saved what we thought was a great program that already existed in the district that was dissolving.
You talked about families moving out of the city when they hit the high school level. Do do you also have families moving into the city to be able to access charter schools?
Well, I think that's happening more and more. So I was just in a wonderful session about funding for charter schools, and Kansas City and St. Louis folks were in the same room, and it's apparent that both cities are having a downtown renaissance. A lot of people moving in, a lot of apartments going up, a lot of single-family houses being converted to apartment houses being converted to single-family. So I think there are people moving in. The problem with that is you're not going to, if you're on a waiting list, and our waiting list at the very beginning of this school year was over 150 students. You're not going to buy a house in a district and you don't know if you're going to get in. And you can't apply to that district to get in the lottery if you don't already live there with proof of residency. So I think there are people who take that risk and apply to 3 of the top charter schools they want their children to attend. And if they don't get in, then what do? You've already bought a house in a district just to get into a charter school. I think there are more options now, and that common application that we've been part of in Kansas City lets parents apply to many charter schools, and so then if they don't get in their top choice, they get in the second choice, or all 3 might be their top choice, and they're okay. But to pack up and move your family to go to a charter school in a city where you're on a waiting list, I would think would preclude people from doing that on a regular basis.
Would it make more sense for charter schools just to open up outside of the city?
That's not required, right? I mean, it's not allowed. There's no regulation to do that. So and charter schools, the options are just different. We have different. They're not huge like some of these great big suburban districts. We have people. If I wanted my kid to go to a suburban school, I'd move to a suburb. I want my child to live in the city. I want my child to be in a diverse community. I want my child to have access to the things downtown. And so they there's a push that people want to stay and do that. But good question about people moving in. I've heard a few people who do, and then they wait till the last minute. And if you don't get in, then you have a new house in a city and you're not in a school that you think is good for your kids.
I had a conversation with a St. Louis representative before one of the charter hearings this year, who is in the city, and was saying that he felt that the charter schools in St. Louis had been very influential in keeping people in his district, keeping them from moving out to the suburbs to access higher quality schools. He then followed it up by saying that he didn't feel like it was the state's right to force charter schools on any other localities. How does that make you feel?
I have people that have been interested in our school from Columbia, Missouri, for instance, from some other rural towns, and they would love to see charters provide an option for students in some of those outlying areas. And Columbia is obviously not a rural area, and they have a French immersion preschool. And it's awesome. And then at the end of that time, they disperse to either private schools or public schools. They've always wanted to have a charter school. So expanding to other parts of the state for me would be awesome. Years ago, probably 10 years ago, vacationing in Colorado, went to a small mountain town. And I was getting a cup of coffee at the bakery, and met some people, and they were talking about, it was a small town, visually small, and there were 3 charters, and they all seemed to just provide the right option for those parents. And it was like, he goes to this charter, and and there was no consternation. There was no. It just seemed like it was just the option. It was like, do I want to go to this grocery store or this grocery store? Because it serves my family's needs the best. And hopefully we can get there.
We certainly don't have to talk about this if you don't want to. But I know back in the spring there were a couple of news stories about Academie Lafayette and diversity. And I know you guys have done a lot of work to try to turn that around. I didn't know if you wanted to say anything about that in terms
I can.
of the efforts. We certainly don't have to if it's a sore subject.
That's okay. I mean, I can say a few things.
I thought it might be, that impetus to change that.
Absolutely. We're a pretty diverse school because we look more like the city that we're in. We want to get to even be more like the city we're in. So one of the things that happened when we bought our first building, it happened to be in an upper middle class white neighborhood. Bought that building, and then people started to apply to that school. I don't think everybody applied to our charter before we moved there, but it looked like, a good opportunity. And so what happened is, we have an open enrollment period just like everyone else, just influx of people who live within that particular geographic area. We saw the problems coming in terms of changing in diversity because of that, and we started to do some things, but over the years we weren't concentrating on it as formally as we probably should have. And then we got some amazing assistance from School Smart KC, Durwood Foundation, Kauffman Foundation. To really, we hired someone, and this was our focus. We had a lot of strategic planning meetings. We included families and community members, and came up with some real concrete goals. And we are now looking at educationally disadvantaged preschools, where we go in, do some reading, do some French songs, French language. And encourage those families to apply. Problem with the way the law is written is that siblings have priority, right? So you have a huge population of neighborhood white middle class whose siblings are also, so it decreases the number of students who get in the lottery. We've been working on it, and this last year we were very successful. We really increased our diversity both racially and with educationally disadvantaged students in kindergarten. So, this is a process that's going to take several years, but we're focused on it and continue to focus on it, and I think we're doing a great job.
The student population of Kansas City right now, Kansas City Public School District, is about 50-50 in terms of going to district schools and going to charter schools. Do you feel like at the state level your elected leaders are recognizing that fact and voting to support the 50% of the students and families that are going to charter schools?
I don't know how to answer that in terms of whether they're supporting that. But I tell you, what's impacting that is the funding formula, and it's impacting it in a negative way. So we're excited about the increased enrollment in charter schools, but it impacts the per dollar pupil we get. So the more we're expanding, the greater it is for our community, but the poses huge difficulties for our budgeting purposes because the funding's going down. So the focus is these legislators have to look at this funding formula, and if we're going to treat students equally, we have to fix that formula so students are getting the funding they deserve to go to either a public school or a charter school.
Is there anything I haven't asked you that you'd like to get out?
I don't think so. No, you did a great job, obviously.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So you think that's all right?
Great.
Okay.